But the reality is, as I told you guys before, you don't have to goad me into this wrestling match because I know as a fact I will beat him 10-0. At 47 years old, if we do a wrestling match, I'm going to beat him 10-0. I just don't imagine any other outcome. When I was on the Olympic team 2 times, I didn't just forget how to wrestle. Here's the problem, though, and this is what you aren't privy to, the information you aren't privy to. Not only do I know that Izzy, first off, Izzy's game is pedestrian. It's like, you know, poquito, little game, right? He could never goad me into that. We're going, well, you can't beat him in wrestling. He knows better than that. Here's the problem. I know I'm going to beat him 10-0, but he also knows I'm going to beat him 10-0. That's why he will not wrestle me.
I fought against this guy named Daniel Cormier, and Daniel fought with a lot of aggression, and I used that against him in certain moments. He was pushing into me, push. I used the same grip, I snapped down, and I used his momentum against him. Boom! And he would go,
me that you want to compete against me, but only in something where you don't run the risk of losing. Because I'll tell you this right now, I probably won't submit him. I probably will not submit Jon Jones. I don't believe I can. I don't know his body style, and he's a good grappler. He's a world champion. He's tremendous. But I do know that if I get him on the ground and I have to ride him and control him, I can do that. I can do that. But if I take him down and I ride him and control him for 8 minutes, and then we get up and they pick up both of our hands, and what's the point? We don't live in a world, I don't live in a world of let's both get our hand raised and let's go home. No, you got your hand raised against me already. I'd like to feel that. If I'm being complete, I want to.
The feud between Jon Jones and Daniel Cormier is one of the most bitter in the history of the UFC, and even years later, this relationship continues to attract attention in the media. At this point, having retired from mixed martial arts, Jones seems to be eager to put an end to his enmity with Cormier, whereas the latter is much more hesitant about this.
Yeah, and the last one, what if you, sir, wrestle against DC in the Ali-Frazier?
If I wrestled against Daniel Cormier, it'd be really interesting to see what happened. I can't definitively say what would happen in the sport of wrestling, but the one thing I do know is that I made him cry in front of the world. I took him off of the list of being considered one of the greatest fighters of all time. He'll be even lower in the rankings of the greatest heavyweight of all time because my prospect, Gable Steveson, is going to be 3 times the champion Daniel Cormier ever was. And so he'll just always be in my shadow one way or another.
Daniel Cormier has made it very clear that there are some unresolved issues between him and Jon Jones, despite the fact that the two have followed completely different paths throughout their respective fighting careers. The reason behind that is because Cormier accepted that Jon Jones has been victorious over him in all the actual fights they had engaged in, but at the same time added that in other competitions that they had participated in, like soccer and coaching, Cormier has been winning over Jon Jones.
I have been, obviously Jon Jones and I went to Thailand and did a show. We were able to work alongside each other cordially and get the show done, which just wrapped very recently, which the result was I had both guys in the finals, and my guy beat Jones's guys, and then I coached the guy that beat Rosendo's guy to win the whole competition. So reality is, in that area, in that arena, I already won, okay? But when you start to see two guys that have been at each other's throat for so long, you start to wonder other ways in which they can compete. But remember, Jones beat me in the fights, but everything we have done since, I have beaten him in. I beat him in the soccer game, I beat him in the coaching, and now the idea that him and I should wrestle is started to float around, or grapple. Now,
when the discussion shifted to a physical match, Cormier was more confident. Cormier argued that he did not require any persuasion to get into the fight since he thought he knew how it was going to turn out before it even started. Although he was 47 years old, Cormier asserted that he still had the wrestling skills because he never stopped wrestling. As an individual who had won the Olympic medal for wrestling twice, he thought he would definitely win the wrestling match against Jones and keep saying 10-0.
He and I are friends. I know him very well. He's trying to goad me into doing this wrestling match, but the reality is, as I told you guys before, you don't have to goad me into this wrestling match because I know as a fact I will beat him 10-0 at 47 years old. If we do a wrestling match, I'm going to beat him 10-0. I just don't imagine any other outcome.
Cormier then explained why he believed the match had not happened yet. According to him, Jones already knew that Cormier would have the advantage in a pure wrestling contest, which was why he did not expect Jones to accept those rules. Cormier claimed that he was willing to wrestle even for the right price, especially after hearing about offers worth 7 figures. From his perspective, there was little risk in accepting because he was confident in his ability to control Jones. He even argued that Jones understood the situation himself, which made the negotiations difficult from the beginning.
I know I'm going to beat him 10-0, but he also knows I'm going to beat him 10-0. That's why he will not wrestle me. Yes, Alfredo and them are trying to make a wrestling match come together. He won't do it. He will not wrestle. The amount of money that has been offered to us to do the wrestling matches, 7 figures to wrestle. You tell me to wrestle for that? I'm in all day. All day to do a wrestling match? But again, not only do I know I'm going to beat him 10-0, he knows that I'm going to beat him 10-0. So he will not agree to a wrestling match.
Jon Jones stated that the training with Daniel Cormier in Thailand was completely different from the experience he had in the past while working with other fighters. While Jon talked about his positive memories from working with such fighters as Nate Diaz, Jorge Masvidal, and Yoel Romero, he had an entirely negative attitude towards Cormier. Jones said that DC was hard to work with, and he made many attempts to reconcile with him. However, as Jones noted, Cormier was not interested in being friends, as the rivalry between them brought them so much money. Yet, there were some moments when they could laugh at each other.
And it was lighthearted, it was cool, we made good memories, we hung out with each other. This season is against Daniel Cormier. Oh man, what a stuffy, just dickhead Cormier really is. I think if you really get to know Daniel Cormier, he's really not.
Yeah, it was nice.
He's an asshole. He was an asshole. I mean, he didn't really connect with any of the fighters here. He's just an asshole. I tried to make peace with him many times, and he made it very clear that he wants to be enemies for the rest of his life because how lucrative it is. And he's just a, I don't know.
But you guys having fun here?
There was moments where we got to laugh, you know, but for the most part, he's a dickhead. You know, you look at the way that he treats his staff members. He brought like 10 yes men out with him and literally, go get me my water. Where's my this? Why is that this? It was just, he just bosses guys around. You know, and the times we weren't filming, he wasn't very sociable with the people on set. He's just a dickhead. I think people that really work with him would know.
When asked if he would wrestle Cormier, Jones said that he could not definitely tell what would come out of it. However, he immediately turned the topic back to their past and reminded that he had already defeated Cormier and had even cried in front of the entire world. The Joneses' rivalry with Cormier had somehow diminished the reputation of the latter as the greatest fighters in the history of fighting. Moreover, Jones also talked about Gable Steveson, whose wrestling prospects were 3 times better than those of Cormier.
Yeah, and the last one. What if you, sir, wrestle against DC in the Ali-Frazier?
If I wrestled against Daniel Cormier, it'd be really interesting to see what happened. I can't definitively say what would happen in the sport of wrestling, but the one thing I do know is that I made him cry in front of the world. I took him off of the list of being considered one of the greatest fighters of all time. He'll be even lower in the rankings of the greatest heavyweight of all time because my prospect Gable Steveson is going to be 3 times the champion Daniel Cormier ever was. And so he'll just always be in my shadow one way or another.
Chael Sonnen argued that this is where much of Cormier's resentment comes from. According to him, when Jones was found out for cheating and when the commission intervened to overturn the outcome of their second bout, making it a no contest. In Sonnen's view, it is not that Cormier lost to Jones and was defeated by Jones in the fight that makes him resentful. It is that Cormier won the championship title despite the absence of Jones and despite everyone else still believing Jones to be the better MMA fighter.
But the Nevada Commission ruled that Jon Jones cheated in sport and switched it to a no contest. And I'm not even saying they didn't follow their right bylaws. I'm just saying that's a discussion. All right. Before I digress, I do think that if Jon came to Daniel with clean hands and he said, look, man, that's always bothered me. You were a great opponent. I did everything I could to get an edge. I trained and I got coaches and I got up in the morning and I went to practice and I followed a diet and I tried to get extra sleep and I took performance enhancers. And I'm sorry. And I stole a moment of your career. And I'm sorry. If it was something along those lines, but I do feel Jon's never said why he wants to make up, right? And this isn't like a Jon Jones makeup tour.
According to Sonnen, Cormier is unlikely to confront Jones publicly about the past because doing so would force him to relive one of the most painful moments of his competitive career. Sonnen believes DC knows exactly why the rivalry still bothers him, but does not want to constantly remind fans about it. He argued that Cormier became champion among the clean athletes competing at the time, yet many fans still believe Jones was better because of the way their first fight played out. Sonnen suggested that this is why Cormier may be reluctant to accept Jones's attempt at reconciliation without a proper apology.
Daniel's not going to say, hey, easy for you to try to make up with me. He's not going to do that. You stole this moment from me. I became champion of the world, and I was, because here's what we operate under. Licensed clean in the pool athletes, of which you were not. Of the licensed clean athletes, I was the best of all of them, and there's an asterisk next to my championship because the community believes I only held it in your absence. The community believes that you're better than me. They believe you're better than me because you kicked me in the head. But it was a real good fight. And I'm not certain that you could have done that if you weren't on performance enhancers. This is where Daniel's coming from. But Daniel's not going to say it because this is like the terrible moment of his competitive life. He doesn't want to relive it. He doesn't want to bring it up or educate new fans that this happened. So it's one of the...
Interestingly, Cormier admitted that his opinion of Jones had softened after spending time with him in Thailand. He still said Jones annoyed him, but explained that being around someone for an extended period can change how you view them. Cormier said he no longer had the same level of dislike for Jones that he once had, despite their complicated history. However, that did not change his opinion about their wrestling matchup. Cormier said the wrestlers he had spoken to agreed with him that Jones would struggle against him under wrestling rules. Their reasoning was that Cormier could take Jones down, control him, and potentially score repeatedly because of the difference between their wrestling backgrounds.
Here's the deal, right? After spending that time with Jones over there in Thailand, honestly, he annoys me still, but he's not as bad as I originally thought, because when you're around someone with that amount of time, obviously you grow and you learn more about them. I saw the video of him saying how stuffy I was and how horrible I treat the people around me, which isn't true. But even me, with all the history, I still can tell you straight up that he ain't what he was before to me. I don't have the level of dislike for him that I had maybe in the past. But I don't want people to get their hopes up for something that isn't gonna happen. Because there's knowledge in terms of how this thing plays out. I have knowledge of it. Every wrestler that I've talked to, all of my friends, they're like, well, he won't do it because you're gonna tech him. You're gonna take him down and you're gonna just either lace him out or gut wrench him out, because there's just no way a guy that won a junior college national championship could beat a two-time Olympic wrestler in a wrestling match. Not fighting, in a wrestling match. So sure, I said it. But then when the rules are all
Even though Cormier insisted he did not actually need another competition with Jones, he admitted that facing his old rival again would still be appealing. He said he did not particularly want to wrestle or grapple anymore, but the chance to compete against Jones was different. If the money was right and both sides could agree on reasonable rules, Cormier was willing to do it. He also acknowledged that Jones is an excellent grappler and said he probably would not submit him. However, Cormier believed he could take Jones down and control him on the mat. That was the kind of challenge he wanted because it would allow him to prove himself in his strongest area.
I mean, I don't want to do it. Guys, I'm telling you right now, I don't want to wrestle. I don't want to wrestle. I don't want to grapple. I really don't want to do any of that. But to do it against Jones, to have an opportunity to do something against Jones, I would do that. If him and I get to compete in something, I would do it. The money's big enough, I would do it, but do I need to do it? No, and that's what I told the guys over there. I go, I don't need to, and I don't really want to. So obviously the only way I'm going to is if we can come to some sort of general agreement, a midway point, concessions on both sides to make it happen. But if that ain't gonna happen, then it's all good. I'll continue to do the job that I do today, which I love, by the way. I love commentating. I love working my jobs. I love doing this YouTube and everything. I love coaching my guys. I got guys getting ready for fights. I love what I do, so I don't need to do the other thing. But if you're gonna pay me 7 figures to wrestle against Jon Jones, I'm in. Alfredo, I'm in. Jon Jones, I'm in. Abraham Kawa, I'm in. But if you're gonna tell me that you want to compete against me, but only in something where you don't run the risk of losing, because I'll tell you this right now, I probably won't submit.
The ultimate point by Cormier was that he needed a fight where he could actually make sure that he has avenged himself of Jones. He stated that he did not see any point in controlling Jones for a few minutes, only to end up raising both their hands. This was because, according to Cormier, he had been through that before since Jones raised his hand against him during their UFC fights. What Cormier wanted was a decisive victory, and he was very much certain that he would win the fight by 10-0. This, according to Cormier, both he and Jones know, and that is why the fight never took place. While the battle between Jon Jones and Daniel Cormier might have begun in the octagon, it is clear that it has not ended there either. It was defined by many years of animosity, clashes, legendary battles, and things that made both fighters remember their careers in a certain way. Since they have retired from MMA, they cannot have any fight anymore in order to resolve the situation. However, this does not mean that everything is over between them, as they have proven that they can cooperate and be professional if needed, even despite all that history. Jones might want to look forward, whereas Cormier might have other reasons for being more reserved. However, this does not mean that the two rivals are going to stay like that forever, since their relationship will most likely always carry the burden of all those years of confrontation. Yet, maybe this is exactly why it will always be remembered. Once the competition ends, the emotions and the questions about it are not going away.